where the distance between sleep and death
There's no way out.
is just a nightmare away.
In 1990, director-writer J.S. Cardone brought us SHADOWZONE. This is a full moon production and stars Louise, Fletcher, David Bearcroft, James Hong and Miguel Nunez Jr. And it's essentially full moon's attempt at a Thing/Alien type movie. So the plot is this: we have this secret government underground facility which is doing research on deep sleep. Now, the idea being that they're looking at kind of deep space travel and putting people into kind of cryo status, and this ultimately is what the idea behind this research was. However, there seems to have been a death on one of the test subjects, and as such, NASA have sent in this guy, this captain, to go and investigate and see if the plug needs to be pulled or whether that funding can continue. However, when he's there, he discovers that our group of scientists have in fact found something different, this being a parallel dimension that is able to connect to our world whilst our subjects are in kind of deep sleep. And they've been communicating with an entity from the other side. A freak accident causes the barriers to split, and an entity gets pulled into our world and has a destructive nature about it. Let's just say that. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. So let's discuss first of all what works. For a full moon film, I have to say this is somewhat of a more of a mature feel to it. It does feel it takes the subject matter a little bit more seriously than a lot of full moon productions. Full moon films are normally quite like the majority of them, but they tend to have a kind of a somewhat kind of silly tone to a lot of them. Not all of them, but some of them at least. This one, I'm pleased to say, takes the subject matter pretty seriously, and kind of like The Thing and Alien, which is obviously is clearly influenced by, it has that sort of tone to it and that sort of urgency about the kind of the dire situation that our protagonists find themselves in. I have to say, it's quite nice seeing Louise, Fletcher and James Hong in somewhat kind of more leading roles here, particularly kind of Fletcher, who is ultimately our female lead, and I think she does a pretty good job here as a slightly unhinged scientist. The practical effects are somewhat varied. The creature, in its unique selling point, can take on the form of whatever its victim is thinking about, which normally means it takes some kind of nightmarish form. And this kind of plays into the shape-shifting aesthetic that is kind of quite similar to the movie The Thing. I think the set design here, although very low budget, is quite effective. The fact that this is a subterranean research facility is quite good, because you do feel like there is somewhat of a claustrophobic feel. And the set design here, where we have like earth coming through some of the walls, and it looks kind of dilapidated and kind of broken down. And I like the attention to detail here, where they show you not a lot of the stuff actually works. They're kind of running on essentially a kind of a shoestring budget to kind of keep the lights on, and thus nothing kind of works properly. And I actually kind of quite like that lived-in feel. We do get some quite nice sort of character work here, I think, by some of the actors. As I've said, Louise Fletcher, I liked her portrayal as a kind of slightly unhinged scientist, but not over the top. She's kind of like, you do still feel she does kind of know what she's talking about, but she's kind of getting swept up with the discovery, so to speak. And, you know, it's a fine balance for making it kind of campy and silly, but still making it, you know, you can believe maybe a scientist ignores danger and kind of wants to kind of find the discovery, which I thought she did here. And I have to say, our main protagonist doesn't really kind of know what's going on, and to me that was some quite good writing, because, you know, things are having to be explained to this character. Admittedly, it's a lot of exposition, but as a, you know, we're the point of view character because we're with him on this journey, because we don't know what's going on, and it feels, you know, it makes sense that things are kind of explained to this kind of like this NASA guy, because he doesn't know what's going on. So the movie can kind of tell us stuff without it seeming kind of too unnatural. The effects wise, I don't think it's too bad. It's a low budget film, it's practical effects, and they wisely keep a lot of it to kind of in the shadows and stuff like that. However, what doesn't work, it's very, very derivative of other movies, including The Thing and Alien in particular. One thing I think will annoy a lot of people is the lack of on-screen deaths. Our creature seems to want to kill people off screen pretty much all the time. The one death that we do see on the screen is actually just a kind of a pole through the chest, which, you know, obviously is less of the creature and more of just it being flung. But there you go. So the creature itself is only ever seen fleetingly. As I've said, I think if the effects aren't particularly, you know, fantastic, it kind of makes sense. But you may feel a little bit shortchanged in the fact that we only ever really get fleeting glimpses of our monster. Some of the acting, but from some of the characters, a little bit over the top. Our female cook, for example, I think that it's more of a caricature than any type of real character. And I do think the movie does become a little bit dull at times when there's just simply a lot of talking in rooms. Now, I'm assuming what's happening here is because the budget isn't particularly high and they're having to keep the effects to a minimum, it's that the running time is padded out by, you know, scenes where there's just conversations in rooms. However, it kind of seems there's just a little bit too much of that at times, and ultimately it becomes a little bit dull at times. Ultimately, it's somewhat of an average kind of thing, clone. Certainly not a bad movie, but I don't think it really is any type of memorable kind of clone of those sort of movies. And as such, I will give this film a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.